Imagine a barefoot boy in the dusty plains of Venezuela, selling homemade sweets on the street to help his family, dreaming not of riches but of justice. Decades later, that same boy stands on the balcony of the presidential palace, waving a red beret to millions, promising a Bolivarian revolution that would shake Latin America and challenge the world's superpower. This is the improbable, dramatic, and deeply divisive story of Hugo Rafael Chávez Frías, the man who rose from rural poverty to become Venezuela's most polarizing leader. How did a military officer turned failed coup plotter capture the hearts of the poor and ignite a socialist experiment that still echoes today? Stay with me as we journey through his life, his triumphs, his failures, and the lessons that define modern Venezuela. Hugo Chávez was born on 28 July 1954 in a modest three-room house in the small rural village of Sabaneta, in Barinas state, deep in Venezuela's Llanos plains. He was the second of several children born to Hugo de los Reyes Chávez and Elena Frías de Chávez, both primary school teachers scraping by in a humble environment. The family had mixed Amerindian, Afro-Venezuelan, Spanish, and Italian roots. Money was tight. His parents couldn't afford to keep all the children at home, so young Hugo and his older brother Adan were sent to live with their grandmother, Rosa Ins Chávez, in Sabaneta proper. Life in Sabaneta was simple and rooted in the land. Chávez later romanticized his humble beginnings, though some accounts suggest the family was more lower middle class than desperately poor. His grandmother's influence was profound. She instilled in him a love for storytelling, history, and a strong moral compass. As a boy, Hugo attended Julian Pino Elementary School. He helped his grandmother make and sell caramelized fruit sweets on the streets. He played baseball passionately, idolizing Venezuelan pitcher Nestor Latigo Chávez, and dreamed of playing professionally for teams like the San Francisco Giants. He wrote poetry, painted, and sang. Nature, the Guanare River, fishing trips with his father, these shaped a deep connection to his roots. From an early age, history fascinated him, especially the life of Simon Bolivar, the great liberator of South America. He also learned about his own great-grandfather, Pedro Pérez Delgado, known as Masanta, a rebel leader who fought against oppression. These stories planted seeds of nationalism and resistance. His parents emphasized education as the path out of rural life. Though his mother hoped he might become a priest, he served as an altar boy but grew disillusioned with the church's hierarchies, seeing Jesus more as a rebel than a passive figure. Young Hugo's path veered elsewhere. At 17, Chávez entered the Venezuelan Academy of Military Sciences in Caracazo. He joined partly to play baseball in the military leagues, but the academy transformed him. The curriculum, influenced by progressive officers, exposed him to broad ideas beyond tactics, history, politics, and social issues. He read voraciously, discovering Karl Marx, Che Guevara, and more about Bolivar. Trips abroad left marks. In Peru, he met leftist President Juan Velasco Alvarado and received a book on national revolution. In Panama, he was impressed by Omar Torrijos's reforms. These encounters showed him the military could be a force for the people, not just the elite. He graduated in 1975 as one of the top in his class, a sub-lieutenant ready to serve. Early in his military career, stationed in counterinsurgency roles, Chávez began questioning the system. He saw the Venezuelan government under the Punto-Fijo Pact, a power-sharing agreement between two main parties that dominated since the late 1950s, as corrupt and serving elites while the poor suffered. In the late 1970s and 1980s, he formed secret cells within the army. First the Venezuelan People's Liberation Army, then the Bolivarian Revolutionary Movement 200, MBR 200, inspired by Bolivar, Simon Rodriguez, and Ezequiel Zamora, the three routes. He met leftist intellectuals and plotted quietly for change. The turning point came in 1989. President Carlos Andrés Pérez, who had campaigned against IMF policies, implemented austerity measures after taking office. Protests erupted in the Caracazo. Massive riots met with brutal military repression. Hundreds, possibly thousands, died. Chávez, hospitalized with chickenpox, didn't participate directly but was horrified, calling it genocide. This radicalized him further. He and his comrades prepared Operation Zamora, a coup to overthrow Pérez. On 4 February 1992, Chávez led paratroopers into Caracas. The plan unraveled due to betrayals, poor coordination, and limited support. He commanded loyalty from less than 10% of the military. Trapped near the presidential palace, facing defeat, Chávez surrendered. But before that, he took to national television in his famous Por Ahora speech, "Comrades, unfortunately, for now, the objectives we set were not achieved in the capital. I assume responsibility for this Bolivarian military movement." Those two words, "for now," electrified the nation. Many Venezuelans, fed up with corruption and inequality, saw him as a bold truth-teller. Though the coup failed, with dozens dead and injured, Chávez became a folk hero overnight. He was imprisoned but pardoned in 1994 by President Rafael Caldera. Emerging from prison a celebrity, Chávez traveled the country, building support. He founded the Fifth Republic Movement, MVR party, promising to dismantle the old corrupt system, convene a constituent assembly for a new constitution, fight poverty, and end elite rule. His charisma, folksy style, and direct communication with the poor resonated in a Venezuela battered by economic crisis, oil dependency, and inequality. In the 1998 presidential election, running as an outsider against the traditional parties, he won a landslide with 56% of the vote. The poor boy from Sabaneta was now president. Chávez hit the ground running. In 1999, a new constitution was drafted and approved, renaming the country the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. It expanded rights, emphasized participatory democracy, and strengthened presidential powers. He began what he called the Bolivarian Revolution, a mix of nationalism, anti-imperialism, socialism, and Christian-inspired social justice. He aligned with Cuba's Fidel Castro, sending oil in exchange for doctors and expertise. His peak years, especially from the mid-2000s, were fueled by soaring oil prices. Venezuela, with the world's largest reserves, saw massive revenues. Chávez nationalized key industries, including parts of oil, telecom, and electricity. He launched the Bolivarian Mission's ambitious social programs bypassing bureaucracy to deliver direct aid. Mission Barrio Adentro brought Cuban doctors into poor neighborhoods for healthcare. Mission Robinson tackled illiteracy. Others focused on education, new schools and universities, food distribution, Merkel markets, housing, Gran Mission Vivienda, and land reform. Poverty dropped significantly, from around 50% to under 30% in key periods. Extreme poverty halved, inequality reduced, and access to education and health improved for millions. Unemployment fell, and millions gained pensions and subsidies. Supporters hailed him as a champion of the marginalized, a modern Bolivar uniting Latin America through initiatives like ALBA, Petrocaribe, and TeleSUR. But controversies mounted. In 2002, A short-lived coup briefly ousted him amid protests and a business strike, but massive popular support and loyal military returned him to power within days. He survived a recall referendum in 2004. Chávez grew more radical, declaring 21st century socialism. He centralized power, took control of institutions like the Supreme Court, used enabling laws for decree powers, and clashed with the private media, which he accused of bias. Critics accused him of authoritarianism, suppressing dissent, expropriations that hurt productivity, and fostering corruption and clientelism. Inflation, shortages, and crime rose over time. His fiery rhetoric, calling George W. Bush the devil at the UN in 2006, with the podium still smelling of sulfur, thrilled supporters but alienated others and strained international relations, especially with the United States. He won re-elections in 2000, 2006, and 2012 with strong majorities, bolstered by social spending and direct TV appeals like his long-running Hello President show. Yet economic mismanagement, price controls, deficit spending, over-reliance on oil without diversification, sowed seeds of crisis. By the end, even as he claimed recovery from cancer, the system showed strains. Diagnosed with cancer in 2011, he fought publicly but died on 5 March 2013 at age 58 in Caracazo. Millions mourned, his funeral drew world leaders. Nicolás Maduro, his chosen successor, took over. Hugo Chávez's legacy is profoundly mixed and still fiercely debated. To his supporters, he empowered the poor, gave voice to the voiceless, reduced inequality, and challenged neoliberalism and US dominance. He inspired a pink tide across Latin America and proved that bold social investment from oil wealth could transform lives. Millions gained dignity, education, and hope. His personal style, singing, joking, quoting Bolivar, made politics accessible and emotional. To critics, he eroded democratic institutions, presided over economic decline masked by oil booms, tolerated or encouraged corruption, and polarized society. Venezuela's murder rate soared, press freedom declined, and the foundations for later hyperinflation and collapse were laid in over-centralization and unsustainable policies. His revolution delivered short-term gains but struggled with long-term structural change. What lessons does Chávez's revolution offer? Charisma and oil money can fund massive social programs and mobilize the excluded, but without strong institutions, diversification, accountability, and pragmatic economics, gains can evaporate. Power concentrated in one leader risks authoritarian drift. Populism speaks to real grievances, but needs sustainable execution. Love for one's people and nation can drive transformation, yet ideology must adapt to reality. Chávez showed the power of hope and narrative, from poor boy to commandante, but also the perils of revolutionary dreams meeting governance challenges. Today, Venezuela grapples with his shadow. Whether hero or cautionary tale, Hugo Chávez remains one of Latin America's most influential figures of the 21st century. He proved a boy from Sabaneta could challenge empires and rewrite his country's story. The revolution continues in debate, in memory, and in the lives he touched. What do you think, visionary or villain? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's complex leaders, and remember, even in failure, for now can spark lasting change. Thanks for watching.